This video is working with Wilcom Embroidery Studio software. Today's video is going to be covering all the menus in Wilcom, their functions, and their uses. This is part 2 of 2. Object menu. I'm going to go ahead and select an element here. Zoom into it. So there's certain properties of this satin stitch that I have selected. It's going to have the density, the pull compensation, the underlay, whatever properties you have set on this, I can make properties current. So basically, if I click that, it's copying the properties from that satin. So if I grab another different satin here that I had that jagged edge function on, if I have that selected and apply current properties, it's going to now apply the properties that I copied from the previous element to this one. So now the properties of these two elements are exactly the same. Apply favorite style. So you can save certain styles or certain properties into your favorites. So if there's a certain satin density or underlay and or pull compensation, you can save those in your favorites and it'll apply that favorite to the element that you have selected. Apply style. So you can set styles up as well. Preset styles for run stitches, satin stitches, tatami stitches, zigzag stitches. You can create your own styles, and so you can apply that style exactly how you saved in the style menu. Create motif. This is where you add individual motifs to a design and save them for future use. Motif is typically a repeating pattern that you save for many different uses. The motif is referencing, that pattern repeating throughout the object that you're applying this motif. Create program split. Program split turns your embroidery or drawing objects into patterns for the use of the program split fills. Set color. You can apply a color to all the elements that you have, either just selected object only or all consecutive objects of the same color. You could actually change the color of all those elements in your design. So arrange. So I'm going to go ahead and select a couple of objects here. Arrange, you can group those two objects. So now once I click on that element there, it's going to select them both as a group. So I can manipulate them, move them, scale them all at the same time. Ungroup is going to reverse that action, so now they are individual elements. Lock is going to lock the element that you had selected currently. As you can see, I can't select that anymore because it's now locked. You can't manipulate it. Unlock all is going to unlock those elements so you can now select them. So again, selecting multiple elements at once, you can use branching. So what that's going to do is if you click branching, it's first going to ask you for the entry point. So I'll select, say, here, and then it's going to ask you for the exit point. So say select here. So now it has combined those two elements and it's going to sew them together. So it's not two individual elements anymore. The computer is going to choose the path that it sews to get from the start point to the end point. Undo that. Apply closest join. Join the selected objects at the closest point. Reapply closest join after editing. So if I have two objects selected, and if you can see these objects, start and stop point of these two objects are at the ends here. Same with this object. They are both at this end here. So if I select those two objects, apply closest join. So the two elements that you need to apply closest join have to be in sequential places in the design. So I'm going to go ahead and move those two elements next to each other because it's going to apply, it's basically going to change the start and stop points automatically so you have closest join. So apply closest join. And again, now if you look, the endpoint changed from here to here because that is the closest join to the next object, which is here. It changed the starting point of this object to match up with the endpoint of that object. So it's basically choosing an area where the two elements meet so you could avoid a trim or a jump stitch in between those two elements. So break apart. So I'm going to go ahead and choose these two elements. I'm going to combine them by using the branching function as we showed earlier, start and stop point. So now it's all one element, as you can see. If you want to change that and you don't want that to be all one element, since this is basically two elements welded together, you're going to choose break apart. And that's going to go ahead and break those two elements apart into individual elements again. Sequence. So if you have an element, selected and you want to change the sequence that it is in your object list, you'll use arrange sequence. You can choose to back one object, forward one object, back one color. So forward one color, you could send it all the way to the start or to the end. You can select by select. So if you have, say, I'm going to go ahead and choose this one and the text down here. And as you can see, those are too far apart from each other on the object list. So if you want to arrange them, sequence, you can sequence them by select. So now it's going to change the sequence and change the text that I had selected right after that first object that I had selected. I'm going to go ahead and select several items here. Several objects, and I can sequence by color, and I can choose what color comes first in that sequence. You can move up or down colors in the sequence to rearrange. Optimize color changes. That's going to go ahead and automatically change the sequence so you don't have so many color changes. So say like you're digitizing in several different objects in different colors back and forth, this will optimize the color change and put those colors together. Selecting two or more objects, you can use the align menu. You can align it to the left, horizontal centers, to the right, top, vertical, bottom, and true center. So if you wanted to center these two elements together, as you can see, there's one on top of each other. It's different choices that you have to arrange the selected elements. So say like you have more than so say like you have 3 different objects and you want to spread them out evenly so they're spaced evenly. You select the multiple objects, space evenly across or down. So I'm going to do down since they're stacked on top of each other. Now the distance between all the objects that I had selected are evenly spaced. So say like you have an element that's smaller than another element. You can select the 2 elements, make the same size, width, height, or both. So I'm going to select both. and it's going to change that first element that I had selected, and it's going to make it the same size as the second element I had selected. Shaping. So there's a couple of different things to shaping this is a function that's seen in a lot of art programs. So if you have two elements, say that they're overlapping each other, if you select them, there's different functions that you can do as far as where they intersect. You can weld them, and that actually welds them into one piece, but as you can see, it kind of gives you some weird elements since they are satin stitches. So I'm going to undo. Intersect, and that's going to only save the area that the two elements were intersecting. Exclude, that's going to exclude where they intersect. Front to back, so it's going to eliminate everything that was in the back and only keep the front, as you can see. And that's the opposite. Flatten. That is going to actually leave gaps of the first element underneath the second element. Divide. And that's where it's going to divide all the elements that are intersecting each other, but it's going to keep them all in their own individual element now. Well, all their individual objects. Remove overlaps. So if you have two overlapping objects, you can remove the overlaps. So you can choose how far of a cutting overlap that you want for the different objects and different settings for your overlaps. Moving on to the function menu. Penetrations use this function to engage or disengage needles or borers in order to create jumps or penetrate through the fabric. Borers toggle the borers function on or off. Insert stop places a stop function at the current stitch or cursor position. Insert tie off is going to add a tie off to secure the stitching. Insert trim is going to trim and cut the thread after the current object that you have selected. Insert empty stitch is going to insert an empty stitch at the current cursor position. You can insert a jump stitch as well. Insert function is going to insert a machine function at the current stitch cursor position. Clear function is going to clear any function that you want to take away that you've inserted or that is naturally in the design. An edit function is going to give you the option to edit a machine function at the current stitch cursor position. And here's an overview of the stitch menu. So I'm going to select an object here. And if you've digitized something in an outline or you have a vector object and you go to stitch and generate stitches, this function generates the stitches for the selected object in the design. So if you generate the stitches, it's going to actually generate the stitches from that outline that you have. So next up is stitch edit selection. When you select that and you're in stitch edit mode, and you select a stitch, as you're traveling through that design stitch by stitch, you see how it turns blue here. That's selecting all of those stitches as you're going along. And what you can do then, selecting all those stitches together, you can make a change to the stitches. The recognize object outlines. This function recognizes new or revised object outlines after stitch editing. So once you use that stitch editing tool, it is used on machine files that are open without object outline recognition. So this is when you're working with DST files or other machine files and not a native EMB file. And split object, this function splits an object in two at the current needle position and is used with travel by stitch functions. So again, if you choose a stitch, split object, where that stitch was selected, it split it into two objects. So it basically cuts at the stitch that you have selected. Now on to the graphics menu. Import graphic, that's when you are going to import a graphic into your design window. As you can see here. Instant Smart Design. Instant Smart Design is a function that automatically creates embroidery from imported artwork instantly. So, in other words, it is automatic digitizing. Now, the one thing you have to remember about automatic digitizing is it's not the same as manual digitizing, and the computer is going to make choices on what stitches are chosen and how it sews. And that's really important to remember, that you really need to go through the design and make sure that it's properly digitized. Smart Design. With this function, users can create whole embroidery designs directly from imported artwork. Keep graphic objects. This function retains the original artwork during conversion. Color matching method. This function matches colors from inserted bitmap or vector graphic to thread colors in selected charts. So if you need some color matching and your artwork is specific colors, it will match the specific thread chart that you have open. Crop bitmap. That's if you want to crop the imported bitmap in any shape. You have standard shapes already set, or you can do any shape. I drag and dropped a rectangle over that, and it's showing the area that it'll crop. If you go up back to your menu, finalize crop, that'll crop your bitmap. And you have remove crop. And if we go back to the original here, and we crop, again, rectangle, shows the crop area. If you want to remove that crop, you select remove crop. Prepare bitmap colors. This function prepares bitmap images for automatic digitizing. So you're going to basically be setting your colors for the automatic digitizing. Edit using. This is where it gives you a function to use a art program that's on your computer. I know Corel is integrated into Wilcom, so if you wanted to use Corel to do any editing to your bitmap, this is where you can bring it into Corel and use that art program. So turning satin to object, tatami fill object with holes, tatami fill object, centerline run object, and outline run object. All of these are forms of instant smart designs or auto digitizing. If you want to transform any of the bitmap into specific stitch types, you could select that stitch type. You select your bitmap area. As you can see, as you cross over the different colors, it's highlighting that color. So if I wanted that specific white to be a satin stitch, I click that, and it just transformed that satin in that area that I selected. So again, all of these functions here are the same function as far as what it does with the bitmap. You just get to choose what type of stitch specifically. If you have your bitmap selected and you use auto trace to vectors, this is where it's going to actually do an automatic trace, as if you would in, for instance, Illustrator has a automatic trace on raster images like a bitmap or a JPEG, and it'll auto trace it into vector format. So once you do that, you see how it breaks all the elements into actually vector pieces of art. And from there, you can do your digitizing as well. Adjust bitmap. This is where you can just adjust brightness, contrast, and other aspects of the bitmap. And add bitmap colors. This function assigns matching thread colors from selected chart or charts to the current colorway. Now for the setup menu. Your option menus. These are options that you have for your design window. Show a measure tooltip. So when you're measuring, it doesn't give you the actual measurement next to the little ruler. You do have that information down at the bottom of your window, but it doesn't show next to the ruler. If you choose that option, then it's going to give you the information as you move your cursor as far as length and angle that you're moving your cursor at. The other option is auto scroll. So say if I have auto scroll on, say I'm digitizing and I get to the end or top of the window, as I move towards that edge of the window, it's going to auto scroll for me. If I have it off and I'm digitizing and I get to the end of the window, you're just going to stop there. The window is not going to pan for you. Manage thread charts. Users can define their own thread charts, creating a store of colors for future use. This option allows to modify or create new thread charts. So if you have a specific thread chart that you're using or specific threads that you have in-house, you can create your own thread chart to match what you have. Manage auto fabrics. This option allows users to modify existing fabric definitions or create new ones for the use in the design process. So you can actually set up certain settings for certain fabrics, and you can apply that auto fabric to your design. Manage styles. This is where you can define new styles for a template, either from scratch or based on an existing style or object. So this is where you're kind of customizing all your settings, whether it's in a template or if it's saved in a favorite or something like that. This is where you're going to manage your styles. My hoops. This option configures the My Hoop list to include only hoops available for your use. So your machine, your sizes, the hoops that you have available. So this will store the information on what hoops you use. So when you do use that hoop function in your window, you can choose from the hoops that you actually have. Manage motifs. Users can manage their custom motif sets in this menu. So if you have set up motifs, this is where you use to manage the motifs that you have within your system. Calibrate screen. This allows you to set up your monitor for accurate design viewing. So you'll actually calibrate the screen and you'll measure on the screen what a certain measurement is and calibrate it so your view of the screen is actually going to be the same measurement as in real life. Connection manager setup. Users connect to machines that appear as removable media or make use of third-party connection software. This is where you're going to be connecting your machines to the software if you're going to send the designs directly to your machine. Tablet setup. This is if you're using a digitizing tablet, this is where you would set that up. Scanner setup. Again, if you are using a scanner to import your designs, this is where you connect your scanner to the software. And the bling and the machine runtime setup. Again, these are outside add-ons. If you are using with the software, this is where you set those up. Security device setup. This is where it's going to show or set your security device. This is the information that you will get from Wilcom. When you have any updates or anything like that, this is where the window you'll be using to enter your security information. The window menu is going to basically be dictating how your window looks. New tab group. This option splits the design window into new tab groups. This option splits the design window into a new tab group, either vertically or horizontally. Each tab group can contain multiple designs. So it's going to break up your screen and your work area into multiple screens. This is going to travel, if you do have it broken up into tab groups, these are going to travel throughout those tab groups. You can remove the tiling if you do have a bunch of groups open. Split window. This option splits the design tab into multiple views of the same design. Dockers. You can choose what dockers that you have open on the right side of your screen. Toolbars. These are the toolbars that you're going to see on the top, side, and bottom of your screen. And you can move these toolbars anywhere that you would like within your window. And these are the toolbars that you can choose from to have open in your design area. Kiosk. This option provides lettering kiosk capabilities for cap and other embroidery designs. This is a program where a lot of retail outlets use for simple personalization or standard design layouts are required. So it's kind of an add-on to Wilcom if you are using it at a retail location. This is going to just show you the different designs that you have open within the window. As you can see, it corresponds with the names that are at the top of the tab here. There's just a generic design one I had open, and then the current window that I have open. More windows. This option displays all open windows. So it's going to show if you have many designs open, you can just open that up so you can select the design you're trying to find. And lastly, the help window. A lot of this is pretty standard as far as what you see in PC programs or programs on any computer. It does take you to wilcom.com, help and support center, how-to training videos. When you register a product, you can check for updates here. This will give you information on what type of software and what version you have. There's product help and reference manuals. The Embroidery Studio provides various ways to access information about the software and how to use it via the help menu. So this is just where you're going to find help on different avenues of finding help. If you like this video and you'd like to see more, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell.